Hi, this is Joseph Knoll, and I will be reviewing the Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book in the First Law trilogy, the second book being Before They Are Hanged, and then the third and final book being Last Argument of Kings. This is a grimdark fantasy series set in its own different world. I was turned on by this series by Mike's book reviews. He's a booktuber, and just a lot of recommendations online. This is a very good start for the series. It's a very character-driven story. Not like Lord of the Rings, where there's a bunch of world building. World building takes a backseat to this story, and the characters are put on a pedestal, which I think is very nice. A little bit Game of Thrones-esque, with like the characters like Ned and Jon taking the forefront stage. It's very much the same with the Blade itself. You're following about like 5 to 8 characters. I think there's 5 POVs in this book, and I would say most of them are excellent. The 2 standouts are definitely Glocka and Logan. So I'll kind of go into a couple of these characters and what's so fun about them. So as I said, it's a character-driven series. One of the main characters, there's no main character in this story. There's just a slew of them, just like A Song of Ice and Fire. But one of the characters is Glocka. He is this guy who is this very successful sort of warrior, knight, as you can say. But anyway, he gets captured by the enemy. This is before the book, so there's no spoilers here. He gets captured, and then he is tortured for information and released. And then he gets mangled in this torturing process. His like legs don't work correctly, like his back's all messed up, he has like no teeth. And he becomes a torturer because it's the only thing left he can do. And so it's really interesting to have a torturer as one of your POVs. He's very much a Tyrion Lannister sort of character. He is looked down upon because of his appearance, but he's extremely intelligent and usually can finagle his way through things, especially because he's underestimated. So if you like that kind of Tyrion Lannister kind of character, I think you're really going to like Glocka. And then Logan, who I mentioned. So for example, when you're reading Glocka's POVs, he's not really in Logan's story. So then you kind of jump to someone else's story in another part of the world. And he's like this grizzled warrior who's been through battle. And is like, the beginning of the book, so this is no spoilers, right in the beginning, he just escapes with like barely hanging on by a thread from this attack. And you're with him as he's like trying to run away and recover. And he's this like famous fighter in the North that everyone in the North like knows his name, and his name's the Bloody Nine because he has 9 fingers. And his POVs are also really interesting because you can tell that he has a ton of experience and that nothing really shocks him, but he's like a simple man and takes things very literally, doesn't really see sarcasm or any of those kind of things. And he's pretty fun. And a lot of this book revolves around you being with these characters and their charm enhancing your experience of the book. And so it's a really fast read because each chapter there's something to laugh at, there's something to be scared at, and it's good. A little bit about the world. It's sort of like Nordic or like European Celtic sort of thing. There's like kings and queens. There's 3 empires. The whole sort of kings in charge, but people, messing with power. Very classic fantasy, but definitely a darker tone. If you're looking for something a little bit more gritty and maybe even a little bit more realistic when it comes to conflict, you'll love this book. I would say females are not really in this book, so if you're looking for a strong female character, you're not going to find it here. There is a POV of a woman. Her name is Pharaoh, but she's sort of this crazy person. You can tell she's kind of psychotic because her childhood was so traumatic. So it's not really your classic female hero in any way. So that could be something that if you like strong female characters in your novels, this is not the series for you. The plot is okay. The pace is pretty slow when it comes to the plot. Now, it's not to say that the chapters read slow, but it's just that you're not really sure what we're building towards. And a lot of the times, those big set pieces, which there are big set pieces in this book, they kind of come up in 2 chapters and they're done. And so you're never really planning for anything. I do find that to be a weakness of the book, that there's no big objectives that I feel like, in 100 pages we're going to find the answer. It's kind of like this big thing happens in 2 chapters and then we move on to the next thing. And it's a little bit different. It's something that I noticed looking back on the book. I read this a year ago, that it's hard to remember the plots. So yes, I would definitely read this book. This is towards the end of the book. This isn't I won't get into spoilers here, but there is a fight, a really infamous fight. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But I won't spoil anything. There's probably going to be a fight in a fantasy book. Like, come on. But Joe Abercrombie does an excellent job in describing fear and then rage, and then like sadness, depression, that goes on during a fight. And I felt that it was very engaging. I see that in most fantasy novels that I've read, fights are kind of this thing that you could almost skim. It's very much like a Marvel movie. Whenever you see a fight in a Marvel movie, you feel like you could go use the restroom and come back and everyone's going to be okay. It's not the case. The beginning of these fights, and as they progress, and they're long, it's like 2 or 3 chapters, it's quite a build. It's its own story. The fight it's got this kind of prologue, and then it kind of rises and climax into this peak, and then we have a nice come down. And I feel like you took a great care in the battle scenes, because I think in fantasy we want to like see some battle. We want to see some badass fights, kind of anime style, and it's sweet that we get it in this book. So I think that's it. It's a pretty good first entry. While reviewing this, I have completed the second book, and I'm about 150 pages into the third book, and I would recommend that you pick up the first book, hoping that the third book will pay off, because I'll get it into my next review, but if you liked this first entry, you're going to enjoy the second entry, and you're definitely going to enjoy the third entry, at least from what I've read so far. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment with any advice you have. Kind of new to this whole thing. I'm not trying to take it too seriously. This is mostly so I can get my own thoughts down, so that later, if I want to feel like how I felt about a book, I can just pull this up. But I do want to add some entertainment. So if you guys have any advice or any comments, please leave them and I'll read them. Okay, thanks for watching.